Mr. Spencer Oliver, good afternoon to you.
Jim, Simon, how are you both?
Very good indeed, Spencer. A lot to get through.
What's wrong with him? Is he in a bad mood today?
No, he asked me how I was, and I just feigned in disinterest.
Oh, I see. I see. That empty chair to Spencer's left is about to be occupied by top boxing promoter Ben Shalom, who is in the building and is about to walk through that door and join us. And we begin this Thursday lunchtime on a serious note, because the world of boxing again, in the eyes of many, has next to no integrity, because it was reported overnight that Ryan Garcia tested positive for the performance-enhancing substance Ostarine the day before and the day of his win over Devin Haney just last month. The urine samples were collected prior to the fight. The results weren't known until later, and many people are saying, what is the sense in that? Surely you need to know the results before the fight takes place. Anyway, Garcia is telling everybody who cares to listen, this is fake news.
I came on here to address this bull claim that I cheated.
Lies.
Yeah. Everybody knows that I don't cheat. What can I say? Why didn't they come out with this before, the fight? If they found it before, why would they let me step into the ring as a cheater and then come out with a victory and then they post this, Again, these are people that are trying to attack me for whatever reason, but no weapon against me shall prosper. I never taken steroid. I don't even know where to get steroids at the end of the day. I barely, take supplements. They're saying it's coming from the ashwagandha. Big lies. I beat his out of here. Everybody go to Warwick tonight. It's lit.
So that was Ryan Garcia. Ben Shalom has joined Spencer, myself and Simon in studio. For his part, Devin Haney has said, we learned about this situation not that long ago. It's unfortunate. Ryan cheated and disrespected both the fans and the sport of boxing by fighting dirty. Ryan owes the fans an apology. You don't play at boxing. This puts the fight in a completely different light. Despite the disadvantage, I still fought on my shield and got back up. People die in this sport. This is no joke. Spencer and Ben are with us. Spencer, we heard from Simon earlier and Adam Cattrall earlier, and there was some very strong views on this morning. What's your take on, what was your reaction when you heard about Garcia?
Very, very disappointed. 26 years ago today, I nearly lost my life in the ring, life-threatening injuries. I had to rebuild from that, so I know the dangers better than anyone of what it is when you get in that ring. You want it to be a level playing field. Anyone that does drugs, I don't condone drugs. I don't think it's acceptable that they're in the sport of boxing. This is a combat sport, a gladiatorial sport. People can lose their lives in there. Yeah. I nearly lost mine. And I think that this is a case of, he's been caught, and I think it's a disgrace, and I think there should be a heavier punishment. I just don't agree with any of it. I think anyone that gets caught with doing drugs in a sport like boxing should be banned for life. And that's the way I feel about it. I'm fed up with it. I'm sick and tired of all these kids saying, you know what, I didn't realise what it was. I don't even know what that drug is. If that was the case, then how did I come in at 3.5 pounds overweight? Well, then you do know what the drug is, because you're talking about the weight issues that it is, and it's a muscle building thing, and it would have dropped your weight as well. So he knows only too well what that drug is, and he's trying to say that he didn't know what it was. How does it get in his system? Listen, it's not acceptable. I think that you need to start throwing the book at these people. I think it's a disgrace that it's going on too often.
Spencer, that was a strong start, that is for sure. Ben Shalom joins us. Ben, it's your sport. You're a promoter in the sport. There's a huge responsibility on promoters to make sure the fighters are clean. And of course, it should be stressed, Garcia is saying this is fake news, that he was clean in his view. But something's got to happen, has it not?
It does, but at least he's been caught. I do think in the US that there is a huge problem. Bigger problem than over in the UK. I think the sophistication levels now of the science and the doctors behind it and the cycles and the way that they can get it in their system and protect it from being caught is pretty sophisticated, and sometimes more sophisticated than the testing systems itself. So I think it's a positive that he's been caught on such a big stage in a way, because I do think there's fighters that do get away with it as well. Obviously,
does he not need to be caught though, Ben, before he fights?
Listen,
no, but I've looked. There's been similar situations that I've been involved in, and I think unless you're gonna say, okay, we won't get in the ring until the results come back, but then maybe the last test is on the Tuesday. People leave it till late, and
did
people know the cycles. People know when they're going to get tested. It takes a certain period of time for a test to come back. That's the same in the Olympics as it is in boxing.
But
Are you saying, Ben, that the reasons why you test on the Friday, if you do indeed say that, you test on a Friday, with results not coming until after the fight, which then brings the sport and the viewers' participation into disrepute because they're looking at something that isn't what they thought they were looking at, and they would want their money back? The broadcasters are looking at it going, we've charged pay-per-view. Are you saying that they do that because there's simply no way of testing earlier because people cycle it out, even if it were 36 hours earlier?
I think
you're going to say people are able to cycle it out at that time.
I do. I think the feeling is they're most likely to catch something the day before.
Listen, the test was done the day before the contest, and they only got the results back after the contest. And my argument is, if they can't get the results back before that contest, at what cost? We're talking about life here when when you're seeing these situations, and I just think that it's tragic that
But what we're trying to evaluate is, and we understand that, and that's a very valid point that you've made. What we're trying to understand is the principles, the orthodoxy of the thinking. Why do you test at the last minute? Because ultimately, after the event is too late, and you have the risk to the fighters, and then you have the credibility of the sport, where someone's gone in, been juiced, won a fight, and the whole credibility of the sport goes down the toilet. So I'm trying to understand: is it a financial concern that the promoters have, that they've got an event on, they do not want to jeopardise the economics of the event because it's a payday, it generates huge returns, or is there something else? Is it why does the testing take so long, and so on and so forth?
You can be cynical and say the payday is so big that
you're
it's
a
late.
promoter. It's not
but no,
cynical.
I think because it's not the promoters in my case that test the fighters. It's the governing bodies and it's the regulators.
But shouldn't the purse be kept in an escrow or something so that if they do fail the test?
It's your event.
I think they test as late as possible because they think that's the most likely time where they're going to catch someone.
But then you've got a situation where somebody goes into the ring without the results of a test, and then it's all too late.
No, I agree.
The punter's paid their money. The fighter's taking his
beating.
And the
danger's been caused.
That's the problem, Ben. Simon's right. A lot of the people who went to the fight, who would pay huge money to watch Garcia fight Haney, massive money to get a decent seat, may well have watched something that wasn't what it was portrayed to be.
No, I agree. And I'm not trying to justify it. I think it's clearly disgraceful, but it's clearly, what I'm trying to say is it's much wider than Ryan Garcia. I think this is a serious problem in the sport.
You as a promoter, right? You're a gatekeeper. You have the ability to change this. You've had this challenge yourself with Amir Khan, and the challenges that come are as a result of Amir Khan failing his drugs test after the Kell Brook fight. What are you saying? It's simply logistically and anatomically impossible to get a fighter tested up until the last possible minute to get the results back and pull that fighter out prior to a fight? Is that logistically impossible?
I can't comment on anatomically. Logistically, of course, you can test as many times as you want, whenever you want, on any day that you want, all the way up until the fight. What I don't know is how quickly
it cycles out.
Can they get a test back before a fight? Because all that's going to happen if you say we've got to wait for the test, I just know that window.
Not difficult, you ask them.
I know that window is the window that the regulators and the governing bodies feel is the best time to test a fighter, because that's the time where they've not been able to cycle it out.
I want to pin Ben. Why does it take 24, 36 hours for the laboratories to get tests back, and sometimes even longer? Why is that taking that amount of time? You talk to the laboratories, you must know.
For me, that's something that's, I believe, isn't just in boxing. I think that happens in the Olympics. I think that happens in many sports. I think it takes that time for them to take the test, get it to the laboratories, make sure that the tests are right, and then report on the test. I think there is a time process.
When you've got to know the result before they fight.
But when you're testing
of course you do. But I'm saying the reason they're testing so late is because they are trying to make... Yeah, they are.
But I mean, you use the example of Olympics. Well, nobody really cares if Ben Johnson has run faster. They certainly do care. Well, they do care because it obviously brings sporting integrity in the athletes competing. But no one gets to die as a result of Ben Johnson running quicker than Carl Lewis.
I agree.
They get to die if somebody has the prerequisite amount of power. And I'm just trying to find the boxing orthodoxy, because a lot of this mythology was the same for me when I walked in football. We don't do things this way, don't do it. And when you test it, you say, well, why don't you do things that way? Because that's the conventional wisdom. Well, it appears to me the conventional wisdom needs to change, because you're not in pace with the drug cheats.
I agree. It's all down to the speed of the turnaround of the test, isn't it? And that's
You're
what's causing
incensed
the
by it,
danger.
Spencer,
I
aren't you?
am, yeah, because it's like 24 hours should be enough to get those tests back, because we're talking, like I said to you, at what cost? We're talking about life here, in certain circumstances with people, drug cheats going in. And the reason they're taking the drugs and doing that is because the ban isn't sufficient enough. They're getting a slap on the wrist and they might get a 2-year ban, but risk versus the reward is
And they should get a lot of them as well.
And
They should get a lot of them.
And
If
that's
if a fighter gets done, then his trainer should go down with him as well.
Absolutely, the whole
And
lot,
then you'd
because
soon
everybody
see-
knows
you'd
what's
s-
going on.
You don't like that idea?
I think there are fighters that do things behind closed doors with their nutritionists away from their trainers, and I know trainers themselves who have come to me and been nervous to take on fighters because they're not sure about their character, they're not sure what they're doing, and I think sometimes there are things that happen without the training.
You start
involvement.
sticking trainers and nutritionists and everyone else in the mix, you'll soon see this start to wheedle its way out of the system.
I hate saying
metaphorically.
it. Connor, Ben, Simon and I are agreed on this. You guys know him better than me. Lovely guy. But there's still people out there who say mud sticks, whether Connor protests his innocence or not. They'll say, by association, I've now got a doubt about Conor Ben. People will now have a doubt about Ryan Garcia.
Listen, a foul test is a
rightfully
foul
so.
test. Then that is facts. And if you can't prove your innocence, if you can't prove how that got
not a
into your
doubt,
body,
it's a fact.
that's
Yeah,
what I'm
it's not
saying.
a- yeah.
If you can't prove how that got into your system, then you're guilty. That is a fact, and that goes with Conor Ben, Ryan Garcia, or any of them. We've nearly 2 years on with Conor Ben. We still haven't had the answers. So the facts are the facts.
So
you can only go by the facts.
So you'd have had Tyson Fury and Canelo Alvarez booted out of sport.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Simon, we're talking about life here. We're talking about cleaning up the sport, and you're talking about a gladiatorial sport where people do get injured and people do die. And I mean, so until things change, people will continue doing it.
The thing is, Ben, if they start banning
glad you came in
boxers
today.
for life, I wonder how many of them would be left to fight.
Look, I think I do agree with Spencer on that. As much as I'm a promoter and I can see the dangers for someone that promotes Canelo or someone that promotes now Ryan Garcia, their whole company is going to be in tatters for a life ban. And they're sat there saying it's nothing to do with us. And
Yes,
but from a sporting perspective, unless the bans are harsh enough, it's just going to go and go. Boxers only box once or twice a year at the best of times at that top level. So being banned for a couple of years doesn't really change much in a boxer's career in a 15-year span. So unless they're serious enough, it will continue.
Simon, we're going to head to a break. There's a great question from Adam, one of the listeners. So what happens to the winnings that Garcia must have netted from his multi-million-pound bet that he placed on himself? He was telling everybody, if indeed he ends up having been found to be a cheat.
Well, that's got nothing to do with the promoters and the fight itself. That's got everything to do with the betting company. I'm assuming the betting company will be after that.
Do you feel, though, that the purses, before they're paid out, until we get those results back,
Right.
whatever it is, the
Ask the promoter.
purses should be put in
Ask the
escrow, and
promoter.
if they're proven guilty or they failed a drugs test, then that purse, they shouldn't be, they should be reaping their rewards.
I agree with that. It does seem that it's almost been a bank robbery type job.
Absolutely.
You get it done, you get in the ring, you get your money, and you run off.
Yeah.
And you're able to run off with your purse, and then you can argue about it later. I agree that's a disgrace.
Ben,